What if I told you that one man, born a slave under a ruthless empire, would one day rise to challenge the greatest power on earth? A man who split seas, defied kings, and carried divine law said to shape the foundation of civilizations. This is not just a story of faith, it's a story of power, rebellion, and destiny. Stay until the end, because you'll discover truths about Moses that even many historians overlook. The tale begins in ancient Egypt, a land of unimaginable wealth and power. But beneath the golden pyramids and temples, a darker truth existed. The Hebrews were enslaved, forced into endless labor under Pharaoh's command. Their cries echoed through the desert winds, yet the empire grew stronger, blind to the seeds of rebellion already planted by fate. Fearing the growing number of Hebrews, Pharaoh issued a cruel decree. Every newborn Hebrew boy must be cast into the Nile. It was a desperate attempt to control destiny, but destiny is not so easily silenced. In the shadows of fear, a Hebrew mother dared to believe that her son's life was worth saving, no matter the risk. She placed him gently in a basket, sealing it with pitch, and entrusted him to the currents of the Nile. Imagine the silence of that moment, the rush of water, the fear in her eyes, the uncertain future. That child was Moses, floating between life and death, guided by forces far beyond human control. The basket drifted toward Pharaoh's palace, where his daughter discovered the infant. Against all odds, she defied her father's decree and raised Moses as her own. The boy destined to challenge Egypt grew up in the very heart of its empire, walking the marble halls of power while carrying the blood of slaves in his veins. Moses grew not as a common child, but as a prince of Egypt. He learned to read hieroglyphs, studied astronomy, mathematics, and the art of war. He wore fine linen, ate at Pharaoh's table, and trained beside Egyptian nobility. Yet, in his heart, he felt the silent weight of an identity he could not ignore, the whispers of blood reminding him that he was not one of them, but a son of slaves. This inner conflict would ignite the path of his destiny. As Moses walked the streets of Egypt, he saw his people whipped, starved, and broken under the sun. The echoes of their cries pierced his heart in ways no royal comfort could silence. He realized he was living in two worlds, one of privilege and power, the other of suffering and despair. This realization burned inside him like a flame that no wealth could extinguish. One day, Moses witnessed an Egyptian guard savagely beating a Hebrew slave. The rage that had been building for years erupted. With his own hands, Moses struck the guard down, leaving his lifeless body buried in the sand. For the first time, he crossed the line between silent witness and active defender. But this act would change his life forever. At first, Moses thought his secret was safe, but whispers travel fast. Soon, Pharaoh himself learned of the murder. The very kingdom that had raised Moses now sought his death. Overnight, he became a fugitive, neither a prince nor a slave, but an outcast with nothing but the desert ahead of him. Moses wandered into the wilderness, the unforgiving desert swallowing him whole. Days under the blazing sun, nights under chilling stars, each moment stripping away the prince he once was. In the silence of exile, he would discover the man he was meant to become. Destiny had torn him from Egypt, but the desert was shaping him for something greater than he could imagine. Exhausted and broken, Moses stumbled into the land of Midian, far from the power of Egypt. By a well, he saw shepherdesses harassed by rough men. Summoning his last strength, he defended them, scattering the aggressors. Among those women was Zipporah, daughter of Jethro, the priest of Midian. For the first time since leaving Egypt, Moses felt a flicker of belonging, a place where he could start again. Welcomed by Jethro, Moses began a new life. Gone were the palaces of Egypt. Now he lived among tents, guiding flocks through barren hills. The rhythm of shepherding hardened his body, but softened his heart. Each sunrise over the desert taught him humility. Each night sky whispered of mysteries greater than empires. The prince had become a shepherd, but destiny was only waiting for its moment. Moses married Zipporah, and for years he lived in quiet peace, raising his family. He believed his days of conflict were behind him. Yet even in silence, his soul carried the burden of Egypt. the cries of his people chained in slavery. No matter how far he traveled, their suffering echoed within him, waiting for the day when his past and future would collide. One day, while tending the flock near Mount Horeb, Moses saw something extraordinary. A bush engulfed in flames, yet untouched by fire. Drawn by awe and fear, he stepped closer. From within the fire came a voice that shook the ground yet pierced his soul. "Moses, Moses!" Trembling, he answered, "Here I am." And thus began the most sacred calling of his life. The voice declared itself as the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It commanded Moses to return to Egypt, to stand before Pharaoh and demand freedom for the Hebrews. Moses, overwhelmed, protested, "Who am I to face Pharaoh? I am no leader." But the voice answered, "I will be with you." In that moment, the destiny of Moses was sealed. With the fire of the divine still burning in his eyes, Moses descended the mountain. Yet doubt gnawed at him. How could a fugitive shepherd stand against a Pharaoh? God answered his fear with signs, his staff turning into a serpent, his hand healed from leprosy, and the promise that his brother Aaron would speak alongside him. Reluctant yet chosen, Moses set his face toward Egypt. After decades away, Moses crossed once more into the land of the Nile. But he was no longer a prince, he was a messenger of God. The palace halls, once familiar, now echoed with the weight of confrontation. His staff tapped on marble floors as he approached the throne, where Pharaoh sat cloaked in gold, radiating absolute power. Moses' voice rang through the hall. "Thus says the Lord, the God of Israel, let my people go that they may serve me." Pharaoh laughed, his arrogance louder than the words of prophecy. "Who is this Lord that I should obey him? The Hebrews will remain my slaves." The challenge had been set. The clash between empire and eternity had begun. To prove his divine commission, Moses cast his staff, and it became a serpent. Pharaoh's magicians smirked, conjuring serpents of their own. Yet Moses' serpent devoured theirs, a silent sign that power beyond Egypt was at work. Still, Pharaoh's heart hardened. Chains rattled heavier in Hebrew camps as the empire tightened its grip instead of yielding. When Pharaoh refused, the Nile turned to blood. Fish floated lifeless, and the stench spread across the land. Then came frogs, swarming every home, gnats biting skin, and flies blackening the air. Egypt's gods were mocked one by one, yet Pharaoh remained unyielding. Each plague struck deeper into the pride of empire, but also lifted the hope of the Hebrews. The plagues grew harsher. Pestilence killed livestock, boils erupted on Egyptian skin, and hail mixed with fire rained from the heavens. Each plague struck at Egypt's gods, the bull of fertility, the healer's idols, the sky deities. But Pharaoh's heart remained iron. The people begged him to release the Hebrews, yet he clung to power, blind to the gathering storm. Then locusts swarmed, devouring every green thing left in Egypt, stripping the land bare. As despair deepened, a thick darkness fell. 3 days where no light pierced the air. Egypt's torches failed, its temples silent, its gods defeated. Only in Hebrew homes was there light, as if the God of Israel carved out sanctuaries of hope amid the abyss. Moses returned to Pharaoh one last time, his face grave with divine judgment. "Thus says the Lord, at midnight every firstborn in Egypt shall die, from Pharaoh's heir to the slave at the millstone." Silence fell. Pharaoh's rage burned, yet behind his fury trembled fear. The final confrontation had been declared. The night of reckoning was near. In Hebrew homes, lambs were sacrificed, their blood smeared upon doorposts as a sign of deliverance. Families huddled in silence, eating unleavened bread, waiting for the cry of Egypt. And at midnight, it came, wails rising through the land as the angel of death passed by. The proud empire broke in a single night, its king mourning his own son. Broken, Pharaoh summoned Moses. "Go, take your people and leave Egypt. Serve your God, but go quickly." The chains of slavery fell. After 400 years, the Hebrews marched out by night, carrying only what they could bear, guided by a promise. The first step of the Exodus echoed like thunder across history. The journey to freedom had begun. As the Hebrews marched into the wilderness, Pharaoh's regret boiled into fury. He unleashed his chariots, 600 of Egypt's finest, glittering under the sun like blades of death. The desert shook beneath hooves and wheels. Word spread quickly. Pharaoh is coming. Fear gripped the people. They cried out to Moses, trapped between an army and the sea. The people turned against Moses. "Did you bring us here to die in the desert?" The cries pierced the air like knives. But Moses lifted his staff. His voice thundered with faith. "Fear not. Stand still and see the salvation of the Lord." His words clashed with panic, yet carried the power to ignite hope in hearts drowning in terror. A fierce wind howled through the night. The waters of the Red Sea rose like colossal walls, shimmering under moonlight. A path of dry ground stretched before them, glowing with divine presence. The people stared in awe, an impossible escape carved by the hand of God. Moses stepped forward, leading the way into the valley of the sea. The Hebrews pressed forward, torches flickering against the towering waters. Children clung to mothers, elders leaned on staffs, hearts pounding with every step. Behind them, Pharaoh's army thundered into the sea path, chariots charging with relentless fury. The clash of destiny echoed, slaves walking into freedom, warriors galloping into judgment. The air itself trembled with divine tension. As dawn broke, Moses stretched out his hand once more. The sea roared back with fury, crashing upon Pharaoh's army. Chariots overturned, horses swallowed, warriors vanished beneath the waves. On the far shore, the Hebrews turned to see Egypt's might shattered forever. They lifted their voices in song, the song of freedom, of a God who delivers. The Red Sea was behind them, but the desert lay ahead, vast, silent, merciless. Days turned into weeks under a burning sun, the people wandering with parched lips and weary feet. Doubt resurfaced like a shadow. Was slavery better than this emptiness? Yet in the silence of the dunes, every grain of sand whispered of a destiny still unfolding. Hunger gnawed at the people, and their cries filled the night. But at dawn, the ground was covered with something mysterious, delicate as frost, manna. They bent down, tasting bread from heaven, sweet and sustaining. Each morning, new provision appeared, as if the sky itself had become their table. In the desert of despair, God fed them with hope. Thirst burned fiercer than hunger. In their desperation, the Hebrews accused Moses once more. "You brought us here to die of thirst." But at God's command, Moses struck a rock with his staff. From its heart burst a river, gushing through the sand. The desert floor, once barren, became a stream of life, proof that even stone obeys the divine. Not all threats came from hunger. The Amalekites struck suddenly, fierce warriors attacking the weary Hebrews. Joshua rallied the men to fight, while Moses climbed a hill with his staff. As long as his arms were raised, Israel prevailed. But when his strength failed, Aaron and Hur held up his hands, turning human weakness into victory through unity and faith. Then came the mountain of fire, Sinai, wrapped in smoke and thunder. The earth shook as lightning split the skies, a divine court descending upon stone. The people trembled at the base, but Moses ascended, vanishing into the cloud of glory. For 40 days he stood in the presence of the Almighty, receiving words that would bind heaven and earth forever. On tablets of stone, the voice of eternity was carved, "You shall have no other gods before me." These were not mere laws, but a covenant, a blueprint for a new nation born in freedom. As Moses descended with the tablets glowing in his hands, the people gazed in awe, yet their hearts were already faltering in the shadow of the golden calf. While Moses lingered on Sinai, the mountain blazing with divine fire, the people grew restless. Days stretched into weeks, and whispers turned into rebellion. "Moses is gone. We need a God we can see." Fear and impatience twisted into idolatry, and under Aaron's hesitant hand, gold was melted into a calf. A false god born from human doubt. Descending the mountain with tablets radiant in his arms, Moses saw the idol. His face hardened, rage mingling with sorrow. He hurled the tablets, shattering them upon the stones. Silence fell. The covenant had been broken before it even began. Idolatry, betrayal, and rebellion scarred the people's destiny, and Moses knew only radical judgment could save them. Standing at the camp's gate, Moses thundered, "Whoever is for the Lord, come to me." The sons of Levi rallied to his side, swords drawn. That day, thousands fell as judgment swept the camp. It was a night of grief, but also of purification. A nation stained by sin would be reborn through fire and blood. Yet, even after judgment, the weight of guilt crushed the nation. Alone, Moses climbed again into the cloud, pleading with God, "If you will not forgive them, blot me out from your book." His prayer was desperate, sacrificial, echoing the love of a shepherd for a stubborn flock. The covenant was renewed, not by stone, but by mercy. When Moses descended once more, a strange glory clung to him. His face shone with divine light so fierce that the people shielded their eyes. From that day, he veiled his face before men, removing it only before the Lord. The radiance was a sign. Moses had stood between heaven and earth, carrying eternity upon his skin. The people set out again, the wilderness stretching endlessly before them. Each step felt heavier than the last, sandstorms whipping their faces, thirst gnawing at their bodies. Murmurs grew into open complaints. "Why did you bring us here to die? Were there not graves in Egypt?" Hope flickered, and Moses stood alone against despair. At Rephidim, the cry for water became unbearable. Children fainted, livestock collapsed, and the people threatened to stone Moses. In desperation, he struck a rock at God's command, and water gushed forth like a river. The people drank, their anger quenched, but Moses' soul trembled. He knew their faith was as fragile as desert dust. But the desert held more than thirst. It held enemies. Amalekite raiders struck the weary camp. As Joshua led the battle, Moses climbed a hilltop, raising his staff to heaven. When his arms were lifted, Israel prevailed. When they fell, Amalek advanced. So Aaron and Hur held his hands steady until victory was won. Faith became their true weapon. Hunger soon gnawed again. With no crops, no bread, the people cried out. At dawn, the desert floor glistened with manna, bread from heaven, and in the evening, quail filled their camp. Each day's portion was enough, no more, no less. It was a lesson. Trust daily, live by faith, for God's provision never failed. But abundance could not silence pride. Korah, a Levite, rose against Moses. "Why do you exalt yourself above the assembly? Are we not all holy?" The earth itself answered. As Korah and his followers stood defiant, the ground split open beneath their feet, swallowing them alive. Terror spread. The desert had witnessed divine judgment. At last, the borders of Canaan loomed. 12 spies were sent, one from each tribe, to scout the land promised since Abraham. For 40 days they walked among its hills and valleys, returning with grapes so large they required 2 men to carry. The land was abundant, but their voices trembled with fear. Giants dwelled there. 10 spies declared, "We cannot take the land. We are like grasshoppers before them." Panic swept through the tribes. Mothers clutched children, men despaired, and the night was filled with weeping. Only Joshua and Caleb cried out with courage, "The land is good. If the Lord delights in us, he will give it to us." But their voices were drowned in fear. The people spoke of stoning Moses, of choosing a new leader to return to Egypt. Rage replaced reason. Then the presence of God descended like fire upon the tent of meeting, silencing the mob. His verdict thundered. This generation would wander 40 years in the desert until all who doubted perished. Hope was postponed. Some, in defiance, marched toward Canaan the next morning, shouting, "We will fight, we will conquer." But Moses warned, "Do not go up, the Lord is not with you." They went anyway, only to be crushed by the Amalekites and Canaanites. Their corpses littered the hills, a grim lesson in the cost of pride and disobedience. The desert became their prison. Days turned into years, years into decades. Children grew up watching graves multiply in the sand, while parents whispered of lost dreams. Each sunset reminded them of the promise they had rejected. And yet, through manna, through water, through the cloud by day and fire by night, God never abandoned them. After months of wandering, they encamped at the foot of Mount Sinai. The mountain loomed dark and jagged, its peak lost in clouds. Then thunder rolled, lightning split the sky, The people trembled as a voice like roaring waters shook the desert. "Consecrate yourselves, for tomorrow I will descend." Awe and terror bound every heart. On the third day, smoke rose from the mountain like a furnace. The ground quaked violently. A trumpet blast grew louder and louder, until the camp shook as if the heavens themselves would break. Fire crowned Sinai. The Lord descended in blazing glory, and Moses alone was summoned upward into the inferno of clouds and flame. There, in the heart of fire, God inscribed his covenant upon 2 stone tablets. "I am the Lord your God. You shall have no other gods before me." Commandments carved by divine hand, meant to guide a nation and shape the destiny of humanity. For hours, Moses stood in sacred silence, holding words that would echo across millennia. But below the mountain, fear and impatience twisted hearts. "Moses is gone too long," they cried. Under Aaron's hand, they molded gold into the form of a calf. Dancers circled the idol with drums and wild shouts, their worship devolving into frenzy. In the shadow of Sinai's fire, the people turned from the very God who had freed them. Descending with the tablets of the covenant, Moses saw the revelry, and his face burned with fury. With a crash, he hurled the stones, shattering them upon the rocks. Silence fell. "Who is on the Lord's side?" he cried. Levites rallied to him, and judgment swept through the camp. The cost of betrayal was paid in blood and ashes. At last, the borders of Canaan rose on the horizon. 12 spies entered the land, returning with tales of giants and fortified cities. 10 voices trembled with fear. "We cannot conquer them." But Joshua and Caleb thundered, "The Lord fights for us." The people wept through the night, demanding to return to Egypt. Faith crumbled into rebellion. Then came judgment. "For 40 years you shall wander," declared the Lord, "until this unfaithful generation passes away." The dream of Canaan was delayed, replaced by endless sand and sorrow. Graves dotted the desert floor, each mound a reminder of unbelief. The wilderness became both a prison and a crucible, forging a new people through hardship. Thirst scorched their throats, and once more they cried, "Why bring us here to die?" Moses struck the rock, and torrents of water gushed forth, glittering in the sun. Relief swept through the crowd, yet beneath the miracle lay a shadow. In anger, Moses had disobeyed the command to speak. A single misstep would seal his fate forever. When venomous serpents invaded the camp, terror spread as bodies fell lifeless to the ground. Yet God gave Moses an answer. A bronze serpent lifted high upon a pole. "Look and live," he declared. Eyes fixed upon the shining figure were healed. It was a symbol of hope, a shadow of salvation that would echo for ages to come. As years slipped away, Joshua emerged like a lion among men. A warrior seasoned in battle, he carried the mantle of faith where others faltered. Beside Moses, he led armies against Amalek and Midian, victories that stirred whispers across the desert. The people began to see in him the strength of a leader chosen for the conquest yet to come. Once more, Moses ascended Sinai, disappearing into thunder and fire. For 40 days he communed with the Eternal, returning with a radiant face that terrified his people. A veil was placed over him, for none could bear the brightness. Here, law and covenant were sealed, binding Israel to its God forever, a contract written in stone and in destiny. In the wilderness, they built a dwelling not of marble, but of acacia and gold, the tabernacle. Within, the Ark of the Covenant rested, its mercy seat overshadowed by cherubim. Here, heaven touched earth. Sacrifices rose as smoke, prayers filled the air, and a pillar of fire hovered by night. God was no longer distant, but among them. Yet even Moses bore the weight of failure. At Meribah, his anger had eclipsed obedience. God's decree was final. "You shall see the land, but you shall not enter it." The promised land stretched ahead, fertile and green, but for Moses, it would remain forever just beyond reach. His heart ached, yet he bowed to divine justice. Before his end, Moses sang a song, a melody carved into eternity. It was a warning, a prophecy, and a hope. He recounted Israel's history, their betrayals, God's mercy, and the destiny yet to unfold. The people wept as his voice carried across the camp, knowing these words were not just history but the soul of their nation. Upon Mount Nebo, overlooking the land he longed to touch, Moses breathed his final prayer. He was 120 years old, yet his eyes had not dimmed. Alone with God, he lay down in silence. No man knows his grave, for the Eternal himself buried his servant. Legends say angels wept, and heaven received him with honor. Moses left behind more than laws and legends. He forged a people, a nation born in fire, faith, and freedom. Prophets, kings, and teachers would trace their path back to his staff and his words. Across millennia, his name became a symbol of liberation, of courage to stand before tyrants, and of faith strong enough to split seas. Through centuries, Moses has remained not merely a man of the past, but a voice echoing into eternity. From synagogues to churches, from deserts to palaces, his laws and story shaped civilizations. He became the blueprint of liberation, inspiring movements from ancient prophets to modern struggles for freedom and justice. But who was Moses truly? A prince, a prophet, a liberator, or simply a man chosen to wrestle with God and destiny? His life reminds us that greatness is often born not in comfort but in trial, not in palaces but in deserts, and not in silence but in thunder. His voice still calls across the ages, "Choose freedom." And here lies the mystery. Though Moses never stepped into the promised land, his footsteps resound across history, shaping faith for billions. What if the true promised land was never a place, but the enduring power of his legacy? Before we unveil the next great story of the ancient world, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications, so you don't miss the revelations yet to come.